right, thank you guys for joining me today. I have a research project that I did for my last master's class that I looked at my classroom, saw a problem within my classroom, found a research-based strategy, applied it within my classroom, took some data to see how well it worked, tweaked it to see if I could get better, more success with that strategy. So I'm using social stories to teach social skills. And this is just the table of contents for University of Cumberland's, but so that just shows you what we're going to do. A vision statement. I'll give you your meeting agendas already out on your table. Introduction, part 1, part 2, reflection, and technology components. The technology components will be the most important aspect for you. All right, in our vision statement, I pulled the school's vision statement, which is empowering successful students, and then I made it my own. So it is my vision to make a large educational impact on my students. I want my students to see success in both the academic and social areas of school. When my students feel success, they are empowered to do more. I encourage students to find what they are good at and use it in the classroom to help others. This gives my students the ability to have a role to encourage others to success. And then our meeting agenda, which is already out on your table. The main question is how can you use social stories to teach social skills in your room? I pre-emailed the article and you guys have already read it. And our PLC members today are you guys the kindergarten team. Our meeting norms, we're going to start and end on time. I will not keep you more than 20 minutes. We've got student and student learning centered issues. We're meeting based on specific goals and we'll have a quick wrap up at the meeting's end. So our goal today is I will present and if time allows we'll discuss social stories as a strategy. So that'll be I've already done my opening and my recorder is already recording. Presentation of the social story strategy comes from me, and then at the end if you guys have questions, comments, or concerns, I can help you. So our introduction, I'm going to state my problem, explain my strategy, I have a quick summary of the article, and show you some baseline data. So my current problem, and I have lots of problems in my room, but I pared it down to just one. My students in my classroom have social skill deficits because they are developmentally delayed. They struggle to learn skills that are not explicitly taught in the classroom. So those are the kids that even with you going over those routines and those norms in your room still struggle to pick it up. The strategy I decided was social stories because they're a great way to systematically teach students those social skills, and it's a very clear and concise manner. What is a social story? It's a narrative, whether it's a big book that you're using, a PowerPoint. I'll show you some additional resources on how you guys can get ready-made access, or if it's something you make. If you see a problem in your classroom, you can just make a quick social story for it. And it describes a new social concept. Maybe you do something, right before you go to a field trip to teach the students how they're to act when they're out of the building. Or a social skill, which is what I concerned myself with, maintaining a conversation, and it teaches that very clearly and very concise. And this is how in my classroom, and you can also use it in the Reg Ed to directly teach social skills if needed. Research does show that social stories are effective in teaching students with autism. So because I only have one student with autism and most of mine are developmentally delayed, I thought what greater way at this young age to see if social stories could work for my developmentally delayed students. This is the article that you guys have already read, using social stories and visual schedules to improve socially appropriate behaviors in children with autism. Just a quick summary, they chose 2 kindergarten students and they read the social story, and as you saw in the packet, they just made a book of their social story and it had the student's name in it. That was effective, but then they put a visual schedule kind of those steps of how they get to circle time or how they get to the computer lab on the student's desk so that the adult and the student could refer to it. And they did see success with both students. How can social stories be used in the classroom and in my classroom? These two resources I have here, I added those in the new social stories book and social skills picture book because those are two resources I have physically in my room. So if you're at a loss and want those books, they are very nice. You can project them through the Elmo, or you can do it in a small group at your horseshoe table. So if you need either of those, contact me. Any teacher can quickly create a social story based on your need. You just have to think through what skills do the students need. For the younger students, since you guys are kindergarten, I would keep it at most to 6 steps or pages in a social story. But there are lengthier ones for older students, like how to, apply for rent, or how to apply for an apartment, or how to, all those social skills, how to apply for a social security card. There are social stories for that for even kids through high school, and I've used them in my previous job. It is effective with students with autism, but I think a lot of our students who are economically disadvantaged, there are a lot of things that they've not been exposed to in the hidden curriculum. So you're welcome to use that. I use it in my room as direct instruction because I'm allotted that time already. And then when I do it, we then role play. So if you do have a kid that's really, really struggling, go over that social story or see me and I'll get you a social story, and then have them role play with another student. My baseline data, their IEP goal for both student 1 and student 2 is the student will initiate and maintain conversations with peers with 80% accuracy on 3 or 4 trials. They started, their baseline data was at 0%. So that helped me to show growth. One of the students had this previously because their IEP overlapped from last year and they were not making progress with it. So I implemented this in my classroom and I'll show you the results. My students, they were given the social story, we read it together, and I'll show you the one that I used, and then I prompted them. We would go through the slides and they would have to retell me what happened on each slide. Then we would role play and practice making conversations. My teachers get observational sheets on every kid for the week. A lot of you have those that list their goal and are they meeting that goal, or how are they meeting, or how is that goal a deficit. And that is where I collected my data. So this is the example of my social story. It was building a conversation. It's from the Watson Institute, and I have that link at the end of the PowerPoint if you guys like it. So I just started. We can build a conversation. Our first step is greet your friend. And I like the visual cue because a lot of my students struggle with looking peers eye to eye. So that is, we talk a lot about body language when we do that. That person then says hi. Or, how are you? So you give the child options. You do not have to do this intense in your classroom, but this one was already ready-made. So if this is something that your kids benefit from, go to the Watson Institute's website. Or what's up? And then the next step, you start your conversation. Comment or question about a topic. I can't wait to get home to see my puppy. Or, what are you going to do this afternoon? And I do teach my kids to ask a question because I think it links with your reading standards, and my students normally can make that blanket statement, but they don't know how to inquire about others. Step 3, listen. Wait, listen, give your friend a chance to answer or comment. And what I have in my classroom is I have a big ear that I use with that too, so that my kids know that that's their time to listen. She is staying quiet and listening to her friend. What's your puppy's name? And then they have the chance to respond. So they answer or comment, but stay on topic. His name is Hobbs. And then you keep it going. Ask another question, make a comment, and wait for your friend to talk. And we brainstorm about that. Do you have any pets? So my results for week 1 were pretty good. Student 1 raised from that 0% to 10%, and student 2 went from 0 to 20%. So I am seeing much better results. Previously, in an IEP for another student that had a similar goal, they would make 5 to 10% gains per month, and this was in 1 week. And that's my analysis, what I just said. So then I tweaked what I did. My adjustment was to put the visual cue in the classroom as well. So I had the visual cue at my small group table in my classroom, and I put it on their desk, so that way the classroom teacher could sometimes prompt them. And I just used that first image of the two students on the bus looking at each other, and that prompted my two students. So that's what I did based on my data with the visual cue. I also reviewed the social story during that second week. I used the same way of collecting data through the observational records. Week 2 results were great as well. Student 2 went up 10% to 20%, or student 1 went up 10% to 20%. Student 2 went up from 20 to 40%. It really, really engaged that second student. So my data did show that social stories worked well alone, but worked even better because alone it was in isolation in my classroom. The visual cue helped them in the Reg Ed classroom as well. And then my reflection, both the students did increase behavior, but not to proficiency. However, I have an entire school year to get them to proficiency. So I will be looking at other strategies to use in conjunction with social stories. My next step, one additional way I'd like to tweak it, and I've already planned to tweak it for next week, is that I am having students create their own social stories. It will be greatly scaffolded for our kindergarten and first graders, but I want them in the pictures modeling those skills. So as we do that and you're interested, I can share out. That way you can see what your students are doing to increase their social skills. And then I just added 3 websites that are great. The last one is where I got that PowerPoint, and they have, it's just a list. The only downfall is it is a long list. It's in alphabetical order, but it's a long list. This first one, these are quick and easy resources to use. I like the second one because it had a lot of videos for you as a teacher to see why social stories are important. And it had really good groupings of their social stories and activities: communication, emotions, and relationships. So if you want to fine tune that. And I showed you the 2 hard copy resources I have if you're interested. So that's the end of mine. I didn't know if you guys had any questions for me before I wrap up. You good? All right, well, you know to email me if you need anything. Thank you, ladies.